if you have a 4-year degree program, can that set you up for what you need for the more advanced specializations? You go study your master's in threat intel or your master's in red teaming and pen testing. We haven't really solved the cybersecurity education and training problem yet. There's been boot camps and certifications. Some are good and some are not good.
This is episode 1 of the MRE Security Podcast of Besides Harrisburg. How you doing, John?
I'm good. I'm a little tired. I drove up from Maryland this morning, but it's going to be a good day.
But tell us a little bit about yourself. Where do you come from? And, what's your job title?
Sure. As brief background, I was in the Army for 10 years. I got out in 2010. I did technical intelligence, and I sort of broke into cybersecurity during that transition, first as a technical instructor. And I've had a number of different roles, mostly supporting DoD or the intelligence community, and eventually discovering threat intelligence, which is really where I found my niche eventually. And I've been both a DoD contractor and a federal civilian as well for a little while at the DoD Cybercrime Center. And I'm at a FANG company now. I've been at that company for about 18 months now in a cybersecurity consulting role, but I also get to teach some of our threat intel courses, which has been really awesome.
Thank you for your service. What exactly did you do within the military?
I did signals intelligence when I was in the military, which is sort of intelligence around communications devices.
Okay. So it's like frequency regarding radios, stuff like that, like wireless.
Yes, and I know a lot about how cell phone networks operate. And for most of my time in the military, I was supporting the war in Afghanistan every day for about 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you did a lot having to do with, let's say, Wi-Fi hacking then, if that's the case, or was it mainly just trying to figure out and connecting back to other people's signals and trying to see what they're talking about?
Yeah. So from what I can say more specifically about that time, a lot of it was helping to identify where enemy personnel were on the battlefield in Afghanistan or the Hindu Kush mountains around Pakistan through analysis of communications devices that those personnel were using.
Gotcha. So we talked a little bit about threat intelligence. Can you go a bit more into what that is?
Yeah, so threat intelligence it's a culmination of sort of multidisciplinary specialization within cybersecurity, where you generally know something about the intelligence cycle and processes, which we mostly steal from the Department of Defense. It was the kill chain originally, because the kill chain is something that comes from the Department of Defense. And it's really understanding and analyzing the adversary threat actors, regardless of what type of actor, right? Cyber criminal, ransomware as a service actor, advanced persistent threat actor, cyber criminals targeting retail space, and what tactics, techniques, and procedures they are using, because the purpose of threat intelligence is to really give you decision advantage. So really, by analyzing what the adversaries are doing, we are hoping to provide information to the blue team, to the SOC, to look at the defenses, adjust defenses, or to leadership, depending on what sort of level of threat intelligence we're operating at, tactical, operational, or strategic, to let decision makers make decisions to help better defend the networks and the data that organization is trying to defend. So that's really at a high level the purpose of threat intelligence and what we're trying to do.
And how do you go about learning this skill set? It's a very niche topic, threat intelligence.
Yeah, the problem is, unlike a lot of other areas of cybersecurity, this is less well defined. There aren't as many certifications or boot camps that are strictly specific to threat intelligence. So what you'll find is a lot of people come out of the government or DoD or law enforcement to get the intelligence background. But then that means we have a lot of people in our community that tend to think alike, which can be bad for bias reasons. I've hired people who come out of school who studied poli-sci, which is really good because they're really good about thinking and understanding how geopolitical aspects would affect potentially what nation state threat actors are doing. But there's a wealth of material online in YouTubes and Slacks and Discords of people who practice threat intel who are trying to help the next generation of people trying to break into threat intel. Leslie Carhart and Katie Nichols do a really good job of providing information. I'm actually teaching at Black Hat with my buddy Andy Piazza, threat intel class. And so that's going to be pretty exciting over the summer.
I'm not at that level yet to really be teaching courses at Black Hat, but that's pretty cool. Now, what would you say is something that you regret doing?
Yeah, there's probably really two things. So I'm also the vice chairman of VetSec, which is a nonprofit to help veterans transition into cybersecurity, or veterans in cybersecurity who want a community, and we offer discount trainings and things. And I didn't really have that when I transitioned out. So when you get out of the military, whether you've done 4 years or 30 years, it's a pretty unique experience to transition back into the civilian world. So one of my regrets is not having a community like VetSec or something similar to that. And I wasn't really tied into the rest of the cybersecurity community for a number of years after I got out. And somebody finally was like, go to B-Sides, Northern Virginia. And I gave a talk, and that really exposed me to the rest of the cybersecurity community outside of the secure world and the secure office space I had been used to for most of my career. And that really opened the door for me. That's why I volunteer at so many events. That's why I'm here at B-Sides Harrisburg today to try to help other people. And so that's just that not having that sort of mentor or community right when I got out made my journey into cybersecurity and back into the civilian world a little bit more difficult than maybe, if we can help other veterans, we can maybe make that a little smoother for them.
Totally. Yeah, VetSecCon was a fantastic. I met a couple people through VetSecCon and really opened up my eyes to how many veterans there are trying to break into the field. You guys have a lot of members within VetSec.
Yeah. And a lot of veterans did some technical thing while they were duty, where they could have been signals, right? And doing comms. We obviously have a lot of people in uniform service that are actually, doing sysadmin and IT skills and cybersecurity. So for some of them, it's a natural transition, and others are trying to find something that they can apply. They have a technical mind and they're drawn to the field, even though that's not what they did in service. But cybersecurity is fairly unique in terms of like stresses, dealing with an adversary, things that a lot of veterans they can feel the need for that mission mindset, and they can come into this field better than, in some cases, maybe a little bit, with a better mindset than somebody that's just coming out of school. Somebody who went to school didn't deal with an adversary. That's a little bit of a new concept to them, that someone is literally attacking the organization that we're trying to defend. Whereas as a veteran, we're fairly used to that. Law enforcement too. Like, we're used to dealing with a threat and trying to counter a threat at a high level. So that can be helpful. But some of those veterans also need to adjust to the civilian world and how things work in the civilian cybersecurity culture as well.
Getting into cybersecurity is extremely difficult, especially for a veteran college student, someone who really doesn't have too much technical background. Let's say you're just going into the military just to, do your duties, and then you come out and you say, hey, I really want to go into cybersecurity. Extremely challenging. So what would you say for beginners? Where should they first start?
I would first try to find your community or group in the world that you vibe with, that you fit with, right? There's ISC Square chapters, ISSA, there's B-Sides organizations, there's Black Girls Hack, there's the Diana Initiative, which I help out with, right? There's all these different communities who are, on Slacks and Discords. Some people are streaming stuff on Twitch. Find your community and find a mentor from that community that you feel like that's a place I belong. That will hugely benefit you in the long run. The mentor will allow you to ask more specific questions, because a question we get all the time, which is not a good question for a mentor, is like, well, what training should I take? Well, really, it's like, well, what do you want to do? Cybersecurity has like 80 different things you can do in it. So once you get a foundational level of training, you may want to tailor what you're doing for where you want your next 2 to 4 years to go. And having a specific mentor will let you do that, rather than just sort of like asking that question generally on like the cybersecurity subreddit or something, where you get 100 different opinions and they might all have some flavor of correctness, but it's not specific to your situation.
Yeah, I mentor just on the side. And I love doing it. I love talking to college students. And something that always comes up, they say, want to become a pen tester. And I'm like, well, saying you want to become a pen tester is kind of irrelevant, because there's so many kinds of pen tests. I tell them that cybersecurity is like a tree. The trunk is cybersecurity. The branches are the different fields. So you have, the SOC analyst, the threat hunter, whatever. And then let's say the pen test branch, you have sub branches, right? So you have the Wi-Fi hacking, you have the car hacking, you have the, web apps, APIs, whatever. And I'm like, you need to specialize in 1 to 2. Don't go crazy and try to specialize in everything. You're never going to get there. Just focus on 1 or 2, become an expert at it, and then continue to grow your skill set. What do you say to that?
There's a couple of considerations with that. I use the medical field analogy quite a lot, right? Like you're the first time the brain surgeon does brain surgery for his first time is not the first time the brain surgeon has done surgery. I mean, hopefully, right? So that's a very long learning path with in that field, a lot of essentially apprenticeship, right? Working under someone else. But like we hear this all the time. I want to be a hacker. I want to be a pen tester. That's also a very small percentage of actual jobs. There's so few jobs on the offensive side. So like everyone is like, oh, it's so sexy to go hack stuff. It is until you have to write the 50-page documentation report.
Right.
So there's a lot of other like practical things to consider. There's less jobs like that. Like how many people are going to be at the CTF today enjoying hacking? And that's not what they do for their 9 to 5. That's not where the paycheck comes from. And we see this all the time because it's really hard because those roles are very rare as well. I also don't think pen testing or red teaming is an entry level cybersecurity job. There's always going to be an exception to everything. So like, yes, there may be, well, my one buddy got an entry level cybersecurity job. But generally, you have to have such deep knowledge and a foundation to understand how so many different things work before you can get a job as a pen tester, or red teamer, or a hacker, that you're going to spend some time probably in another role first. And that's where I think trying to get that mentorship and like with car hacking or like testing airplane devices, like, okay, all those 10 people are employed for the 10 positions that need them. So like, that's really cool, but that might not be able to be your 9 to 5. But that doesn't mean you can't do that in addition to make a name for yourself and go give talks and write papers, which is actually a big part of our community is people doing stuff in cybersecurity that is not part of their 9 to 5.
I was one of the exceptions, right? Getting out of college, I became a pen tester. But I tell people one of my biggest regrets, and this is what I said in the last episode, was I didn't go into a SOC, my first position. I didn't understand what event logs were. I didn't understand what syslogs were. I didn't understand how to query anything, right? Or what the SOC is seeing, so I can bypass it. So as a red teamer, as a pen tester, you want to know these things so you can help advance your skill set. For me, I kind of missed that opportunity. Again, I love pen testing. I love what I do, but at the same token, kind of missed the mark when it comes to, everyone's a purple team at the end of the day.
Yeah. And one of the things me and all my old friends in cybersecurity lament sometimes is when we try to, especially deal with either veterans that have only been in for a short while and are fairly junior or college graduates, is that a lot of these folks don't understand how the networks operate. Like they haven't done IT network enterprise. And even if you haven't done something in IT network enterprise or you weren't a sysadmin, it's really critical to understand like what it is that I'm protecting and how it works and why maybe I can't do certain things on this hospital network, right? I can't do certain things because these are MRI devices and they must run Windows XP or whatever, or whatever old proprietary operating system is from this company that doesn't even exist anymore. And so that will help. The more people understand that, it will help you be more effective on the cybersecurity side. So the advice you give on how to prevent attacks or reduce risk is more applicable for the environment for whatever organization you're a part of. And that's one of the things that I think is sort of a lot of the boot camps and even a lot of the cybersecurity material at colleges can't really prepare people for, right? They're providing this underlying knowledge of information, but they can't say, okay, well, this is how the job would look different at a small company with 5,000 endpoints versus a hospital with 50,000 endpoints all around the world because we have European affiliates or something like that. That's an entirely different prospect. So cybersecurity is really complex.
It is. Yeah. And I tell my college, I used to, try to help out with the college curriculum, trying to figure out how to spice it up a little bit. And the issue that we were running into was people want different tracks. So for me, I wanted the pen test track. I wanted to learn everything about pen testing, but someone else wanted to learn about threat hunting as well as SOCs. And then it turned into, well, we have to get programming involved because you need to first learn how to configure Active Directory, syslogs, all that stuff. So we started to realize that there's no way of actually branching things out unless you're at a huge university where you can have those branches, do the standard general, networking and whatever, and then slowly branch out into, if you want to go into advanced SOC, you have this, or if you want to go into pen testing, you have that, but you'll never be able to have a well-rounded and diverse understanding of cybersecurity within a college.
Yeah, and I know we're coming up on time, but this is one of the reasons I like the medical field analogy so much is because cybersecurity is a really young discipline compared to like law or medicine or philosophy. So if you have a 4-year degree program, can that set you up for what you need for the more advanced specializations? You go then study your master's in threat intel or your master's in red teaming and pen testing, right? And we haven't really solved the cybersecurity education and training problem yet. There's been a lot of boot camps and certifications, and some are okay, and some are good, and some are not good. It's really problematic, and it's one of the things that like the universities haven't fully stepped in to solve yet because we're still sort of mostly focused on sort of a 4-year degree in cybersecurity. There's a lot of other problems about that process as well and how expensive college is, but maybe we'll have to talk about that some other time.
Yeah, that's definitely a problem. When I was working at a bank, I talked to HR about it. I'm like, what do I have to do to spice up my resume? And the first thing that they said was the college degree really doesn't matter. And I was like, why doesn't it matter? I'm spending so much money on this college degree. And what they told me was when you get your first full-time position in cybersecurity or in auditing or wherever else wherever you want to go, they said that they want to see consistency. So if you only work there for a year and then you leave or get fired, chances are you're not a great employee. People are not going to want to work with you. But if you stay there for, let's say, 3 to 4 years, you have a better likelihood because now you have experience under your belt. You show that you're consistent with your work and various other things that they were talking about. So it kind of opened my eyes that college degrees, at least in cybersecurity, yes, they definitely help you go through the door. But at the same token, you don't really need, like, I know so many people that don't have college degrees and they're successful and they do things a lot better than I can. So it really depends on, I guess, your take on college degrees. I personally don't think that they're worth it, but a lot of people think that they are just because of job descriptions. What do you think?
I think it's probably very complicated. It depends, hashtag trademark, on a lot of different things. Most of your CISOs are going to have some sort of college degree or a master's or an MBA, right? So if that's the path you want to go on, I've learned I definitely don't want to be a CISO. But if that's the path someone wants to be on and they want to be an executive at like a corporate 200, Fortune 200 corporation, they're going to need probably an advanced degree. But yes, I mean, come to DEF CON, see all the people that are amazing at cybersecurity, and it's education that's really important. But then you're also trying to overcome the applicant tracking systems and what hiring managers say that they want from people. So it's a really complicated situation. You don't have to have a college degree to be successful in cybersecurity, but it may at some point limit some of the things, but that might not prevent you from getting a job where they have tuition assistance and then like use the tuition assistance to help pay for the degree. And then, once you're in this field, you're probably going to be in this field for a long time. It's a marathon, right? And I think a lot of younger people we talk to feel like it's a sprint and like this is a marathon. You're going to be working for a long time and you probably should think about that in the long term, in addition to what you're trying to do in the next like 2 to 3 years. Like, what does the next 20 years look like for where you want to go?
That was definitely my problem. Was I thought it was a sprint, so I did everything I could. It's worked out in my favor.
About that way.
Yes, I mean, everyone's different. I'm just very outgoing and
Yeah,
trying
but
to
we
get
want to see that passion. Hiring managers and recruiters want to see people that are passionate. So there's, again, a balance to everything. What a single person who's young can do and how much they can commit to learning all the time is different than if you're supporting a family, right? And so again, everybody's different, unique, circumstances matter for each person, which again is why having a very specialized mentor is more beneficial than very generalized advice in a lot of cases, because they can take your specific situation into account.
So before we wrap up here, do you have any final thoughts to give to the audience about what they could do to start their cybersecurity journey?
Come to events like B-Sides Harrisburg and your local events and get to know people and come network and see what it's all about. There are jobs that are open, but it is tough to break in sometimes. So come talk to people. Generally, most people at cybersecurity at events like this are going to be happy to talk to you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.